You're staring at a decision. Should I take this job? Should I say this in the meeting? Should I send that email? You freeze, you overthink, you ask 5 people, you make a pros and cons list, you still don't decide. Meanwhile, a fighter pilot is traveling at 1,500 miles per hour, 40,000 feet in the air, 6 threats on radar, 2 missiles incoming, 3 seconds to act. He decides instantly, correctly, every time. Same brain as you, same 3 pounds of fat behind the eyes. The difference isn't intelligence. It isn't talent. It isn't some genetic gift you weren't born with. It's a system, a specific, trainable, documented cognitive system that the military spent decades and hundreds of millions of dollars building. And it works on everything. Job decisions, business calls, social situations, anything requiring a fast, correct answer under pressure. I'm about to show you exactly what that system is. And by the end of this video, you will never make a slow, bad decision again. Chapter 1. The loop. Most people think good decisions come from thinking longer. Wrong. Most people think more information equals a better choice. Wrong. Most people think if they just sleep on it, clarity will arrive. Wrong. In the 1950s, a United States Air Force colonel named John Boyd watched dogfights. He noticed something. The pilots who won weren't the ones with better planes. They weren't the ones who trained harder. They were the ones who cycled through decisions faster. Boyd studied this for years. He built a framework. He called it the OODA Loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. Here's what it means. Step 1, you observe reality. What's actually happening, not what you think is happening. Step 2, you orient. You filter that observation through your experience, your mental models, your knowledge. Step 3, you decide. Pick a move. Step 4, you act. Execute immediately. Then you loop back. Observe the new reality your action created. Orient again. Decide again. Act again. The pilot who loops faster wins every time. Not the pilot who thinks longer. The one who loops faster. Boyd proved this on paper, then proved it in the air. He had a standing bet with every pilot on the base. Any pilot could start in an advantageous position. Boyd would start from behind. On the wrong side, he would win within 40 seconds, every single time. He called it 40-second Boyd. He never lost the bet once. Here's what this means for you. You are not losing because you lack intelligence. You are losing because your loop is broken. You observe, then you pause. You orient, then you second guess. You decide, then you freeze before acting. You never loop back fast enough to correct. Every second you spend paralyzed, your competitor loops twice. Your window closes. The opportunity dies. But slowing your loop isn't the only mistake. There's a deeper problem, and it's uglier. Chapter 2. The cognitive trap. Here's the thing about your brain. It's lazy, on purpose. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman spent his career studying this. He called it System 1 and System 2 thinking. System 1 is fast, automatic, emotional. System 2 is slow, deliberate, logical. Your brain defaults to System 1 for everything, always. Because System 2 burns energy and your brain hoards energy like a survivalist hoards canned food. Evolution built you to conserve. Problem is, System 1 makes predictable errors. The same ones every time in every person. Cognitive psychologists call these heuristics and biases. There are over 180 documented ones, but pilots are trained to defeat 3 specific ones that kill decisions. The first is confirmation bias. Your brain finds evidence that proves what it already believes and ignores everything that contradicts it. You already decided. You're just looking for permission. Fighter pilots are trained to actively seek disconfirming data. What evidence would prove me wrong? If you can't answer that question, you're not thinking. You're rationalizing. The second is the sunk cost trap. You've already spent time on this, already invested money, already committed publicly, so you keep going. Even when all signs say stop. Pilots call this get their itis. The compulsion to complete the mission even when conditions make it suicidal. More planes are lost to get their itis than enemy fire. Most businesses die the same way. You know it's not working. You keep going anyway. Sunk cost. Idiot move. The third is fixation. You lock onto one interpretation of a situation and you cannot let it go even as reality changes around you. Accident investigators have a name for this: tunnel vision. In 1972, Eastern Airlines Flight 401 crashed into the Florida Everglades. not because of mechanical failure, because the entire crew fixated on a burnt-out landing gear indicator light. They were so locked onto that one problem, they didn't notice the autopilot had disengaged. All 3 crew members staring at a light bulb while the plane flew itself into a swamp. 101 people died. Most people spend their careers fixated on the wrong metric, revenue instead of margin, followers instead of conversions, the light bulb instead of the altitude. Here's the fix. Before any decision, run 3 questions. What am I assuming is true that might not be? What would have to be true for the opposite decision to be correct? What am I not looking at right now? 3 questions, 30 seconds. Defeats all 3 traps. But defeating cognitive bias still isn't enough, because knowing the trap and escaping it under real pressure are 2 completely different things. And real pressure is where most people collapse. Hit subscribe before you forget, because what comes next is where average people fall apart and where the system separates itself. Chapter 3, Stress Inoculation. Most people think pressure makes you worse, sometimes, under the wrong conditions, with the wrong training. But military psychologists discovered something counterintuitive. Stress can enhance performance. If you've been exposed to it correctly beforehand, it's called stress inoculation. And it works exactly like a vaccine. You inject a small dose of the thing that kills you. Your immune system learns to handle it. Expose yourself again. You handle more. Again. You handle more still. The United States Army Research Laboratory documented this in 2018. Soldiers trained with high-stress simulations before combat made dramatically better decisions under actual fire than soldiers trained in controlled, calm environments. Same curriculum, same information, different outcome. The difference was inoculation. Here's what this means practically. You need to practice decisions under artificial pressure before real pressure arrives. Psychiatrist and performance researcher Martin Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania studied this for decades. He found that people who have been exposed to manageable adversity repeatedly develop what he called learned optimism and stress resilience. People who were always protected from discomfort collapsed at the first real obstacle. He called the protected ones fragile. He called the inoculated ones anti-fragile, before Nassim Taleb made the word famous. How do you inoculate yourself? Constrain your decision time deliberately. You have 60 seconds. Make the call. No extensions. No sleep on it. 60 seconds and you commit. Do this daily with low-stakes decisions. What to order, which route to take, which task to start. Train the loop to run fast on small decisions, and it runs fast on big ones automatically. Practice deciding with incomplete information on purpose. Most people wait until they have enough data. Enough data never arrives. Pilots fly in clouds. They cannot see. They fly instruments. They trust training. Make 3 decisions this week where you deliberately stop researching before you feel ready. Act on 70% information. Adjust when reality responds. Debrief every decision ruthlessly. After any significant call you made, sit down alone, no audience, no ego protection, and answer 4 questions. What did I decide? What actually happened? What did I miss in my orientation? What do I loop differently next time? The United States Navy calls this the after-action review. High-performing organizations do this after every mission. Average people do it never. Then they make the same mistake for 40 years and call it experience. But here's the problem though. You can have a perfect loop. You can eliminate bias. You can inoculate yourself against pressure, and you will still make catastrophically bad decisions if your input data is garbage. Chapter 4, the signal problem. Pilots have instruments: altitude, airspeed, heading, fuel, threat radar. The instruments don't lie. The instruments don't have feelings. They don't care what the pilot hopes is true. You don't have instruments. You have social media, anxious friends, biased news, your own emotional history, and the opinions of people who have never done what you're trying to do. That is not data. That is noise dressed up as data. Researcher Philip Tetlock at the University of Pennsylvania spent 20 years studying who makes the best predictions and why. He tracked thousands of experts across hundreds of domains: politicians, economists, analysts, commentators. He found something brutal. The average expert predicted the future barely better than random chance, some worse. But a small group he called foxes dramatically outperformed everyone else. What made them different? They consumed information from many sources across different domains. They updated their beliefs when new data contradicted old beliefs. They were comfortable saying, I don't know, and I was wrong. They thought in probabilities, not certainties. The losers, whom Tetlock called hedgehogs, knew one big thing and applied it to everything. They were confident. They were wrong. The media loved them because confidence sounds smart. Confidence is not accuracy. Confidence is a feeling. Your information diet is deciding your life outcomes right now. If you consume outrage content, you will make outrage-driven decisions. If you consume shallow hot takes, you will think in shallow hot takes. If you consume nothing but your own industry, you will be blindsided by everything adjacent to it. Pilots cross-train. They study meteorology, physics, engineering, psychology, physiology. Not because they need to be experts in all of it, because every domain gives them a new instrument panel, a new way to read a situation nobody else is reading correctly. Read outside your field every week. One book, one long article, one domain you've never studied. Not for information, for instrument panels. Here's the problem though. You now have the loop. You have bias elimination, you have stress inoculation, you have signal over noise. But there is one final layer that determines whether any of this actually works in real life. And most people never touch it. Mental simulation. Before Boy flew, he ran the dogfight in his head. Every move, every counter, every contingency. Surgeons do this before cutting. Chess grandmasters do this before touching a piece. Athletes call it visualization and dismiss it as soft. Researchers call it mental rehearsal, and they do not dismiss it at all. Neuroscientist Alvaro Pascual-Leone at Harvard ran a study in the early 1990s. One group physically practiced piano scales daily for 5 days. Another group only imagined playing the scales. Same fingers, never touching a key. Brain scans at the end showed nearly identical neural changes in both groups. The mental practice group developed almost the same motor pathways as the physical practice group. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. That is not a metaphor. That is neuroscience. Before any high-stakes situation, run it in your head completely. What will you say? What will they say back? What goes wrong? How do you respond? What goes right? How do you close it? Run the whole scenario, including the failures, especially the failures. Pilots call this chair flying. You sit in a chair. You fly the plane in your head. Every instrument check, every radio call, every emergency procedure. When you get in the actual cockpit, you've already flown the mission 100 times. Most people walk into important moments completely cold, hoping improvisation saves them. Improvisation kills. Preparation wins, always. To keep it simple, stupid. Run the OODA Loop faster than everyone around you. Eliminate the 3 cognitive traps before deciding. Inoculate yourself against pressure by manufacturing it deliberately. Clean up your information diet. Simulate everything important before it happens. You're not slow. You weren't born indecisive. You were just never taught the system. Now you have it. But here's the thing. Thinking faster and deciding better is only half of it. If your memory can't store what you're learning fast enough, your loop feeds on garbage. You'll cycle through the same wrong answer over and over and never know why. That's why I made this video breaking down exactly how to remember everything you learned the first time you encounter it. It's almost unfair. Watch it next.